Dear professors, academics, very esteemed panelists that I am proud to be together with, and the most important, the dear students. It's a privilege here for me to join to this event of yours with the invitation of Işık Özge Hanım. And indeed, I have things to be proud, as I am from İzmir. That my hometown is İzmir, and I'm always privileged to tell anyone that is asking in Turkish. It's a very common question. Where are you from? So I am from İzmir, and so it's very nice for me to be here with you today. I'm going to let's say try to give a case in supply chain resilience, as the title goes, during pandemic from air logistics perspective. And Turkish Cargo, which is the air logistics brand of Turkish Airlines, and its journey through the pandemic's time, I believe, would make a meaningful story from a supply chain resilience perspective. First of all, that's common to many of the students and all the esteemed participants. Certainly, Turkish Airlines is the airline which flies the most number of countries in the world, the highest number of countries. That's before pandemic, 127. Now, in the pandemic or in the later phase, it is close to 108 to 110, still the highest in the world, as the many of the global airlines networks collapsed or half functioning due to several constraints, as probably many of them are very clear to you, and I will go into some of the details. Here, the important thing is in cargo business, as a side business, Turkish Airlines hasn't been so intensively strong and widespread and successful, let me say, until mid of last decade. By 2015, the board of Turkish Airlines decided to consider cargo business, air cargo business, as a strategic business unit. And I have just joined in 2016 as the first chief cargo officer of Turkish Airlines, reporting to CEO. Before myself, it was a senior vice president accountability, reporting to the chief commercial officer. Therefore, by 2015 and 16, the focus of Turkish Airlines as a combined airline to the air cargo and air logistics significantly increased. And although owning and operating one of the most worldwide spread air network from a passenger perspective, cargo had just recently reached by 2019 to be again one of the largest in terms of network in worldwide. Here, that obviously map shows in terms of colors the densities and frequencies of international flights from both passenger and cargo perspective. So air traffic, people and cargo. The important thing here, the center of gravity of this global map for passenger is in between Crete and Cyprus. So, and slowly moving to eastward. So Istanbul and Turkey is the ultimately closest country and air hub to the center of gravity of passenger global traffic. When it comes to air cargo, it's even more interesting. The center of gravity of air cargo, global air cargo traffic, is in now Black Sea, 150 kilometers north of Istanbul. Hence, again, slowly moving to eastwards towards Georgia, with the gaining share of weight of Far East, China, Hong Kong, and Far East markets. So both from passengers, even more from cargo perspective, Turkey as a country and Istanbul as the hub, as a global air cargo and air passenger hub, is just at the crossroads of worldwide air traffic. Therefore, we keep these slides several times in our previous presentations in different parts of the world, in Europe, in US, in Far East, and after sometimes they start to call it Turkish map, Turkish carpet. So this is a Turkish carpet for global air passenger and air cargo business. Let's come to the pandemics. What happened and what is happening is probably very, very clear and familiar to everyone. So I don't really want to go into details. But if you look at it from air perspective, air travel and aviation perspective, civil aviation perspective, as the civil aviation roped up after the Second World War, it's just 70 to 80 years old global industry, very, very big and very fast growing industry, hit the highest since its establishment, since the Second World War, hit the highest crisis with the pandemic. And it's obvious, it's natural, it's natural. We are all worried of ours and our friends, families, loved ones' health with the contagious virus, COVID-19. And obviously, planes were not the right place to be, huh? As long as you have to be. And please consider pilots and crew teams, how difficult it is indeed still, especially in the first days of the pandemic. So the worst crisis in aviation. That's, let's say, to my friend's picture showing intermix of COVID-19 pandemics impacting to supply chain. And that's a disruption. That's the biggest disruption that air supply chains, but not only air supply chains, also ground, intermodals, ocean, any kind of supply chain components and logistics components hit and disrupted. That's the last word we should say about it, and the first sentence we should say about it. The governments, certainly the governments, made several decisions and dynamically close the borders, open the borders, close it again, close for someone, open for some others. And you follow the news, and that's still the case, unfortunately, for that. The global manufacturers had really had the biggest hit with missing the components, shortfall in supplies, the supply chains broken, home office work, quarantine, imports and exports dynamics are totally distorted. The manufacturers from local perspective had the same hit as well. So the key component between the consumers, either B2B or B2C, and the manufacturers as being the logistics and supply chain, that certainly impacted heavily. And as all we are the consumers, we know now that we can live at home, survive at home for a while. We can shop from our homes, we can work from our homes, many of us, but not all of us, unfortunately, but many of us. But still, that's certainly a big change for logistics and supply chains, also including air logistics. I would like to shortly underline which we believe it's a success story of Turkish Cargo's agile reactions throughout the pandemic. We had few quick decisions by as early as February and March last year, and worked on it very quickly, agilely, and go forward. But behind these reactions or agility, if I would be asked from an academic's perspective, or from students who learns their métier, their profession, that's probably the key components you see in the screen that made the success that I will go shortly afterwards. Basically, first of all, the management, the leadership is important. You should be hands-on. You should be there. You should be together, both with your minds and also with your hearts. The leadership and hands-on management is key, as in every crisis, in every organization. However, innovation was certainly the main differentiator to really make things differently. Therefore, we hold several decisions or quicken some of our processes to really, innovation-wise processes to really come up with some strong solutions. And certainly needed a lot of adaptations and dynamic management that obviously contributed to the success. What does it mean in a very simple and concrete terms? At least few of them, if not all. The cargo demand didn't stop when passenger demand stopped, starting by January last year and February, starting from China onward. But by early March, as you know, Turkey, the first case was 11th of March 11th, and Europe and US gone the full blockouts. The need for cargo carrying didn't stop, but even increased further from the urgency perspective. Medicals, the test kits, pharma products, the masks and protective equipment and everything you can imagine of that. But as you will probably know, worldwide, 70 to 75% of global air cargo traffic runs through passenger aircrafts. It's best to carry passenger in the upper deck and cargo in lower deck. When you go to a big airplane with two areas, don't think that you have only baggages and luggages under it. It's more than 95% of the volume behind deck, the lower deck, is fully occupied by cargoes. Therefore, when you stop which is 70-75% of your capacity worldwide, not only for Turkish cargo, for any other airline, then you totally lose so much of your supply and capacity to increasing and becoming more urgent demand of air cargo traffic. We are running more than 330 aircrafts, but only 25 being freighters, which means cargo aircrafts, cargo airplanes. Freighters means cargo airplanes. So basically, we were running 330 plus passenger and plus 25 cargo freighters and carrying cargo all over 350 plus aircrafts. And 330 of them, and many of them stopped only for a few urgency travels that could happen to bring back students or businessmen or workers from different countries to Turkey. That was the only passenger travels. So what we had to do, we had to find a solution to survive, to sustain our network and to meet the urgent demands of our customers, not only in Turkey, but worldwide, because we are a transit cargo carrier. Our customers is worldwide. We are carrying from 127 countries to other 127 countries in the world by cross-docking, by transiting through Istanbul hub. Therefore, we had to find a solution. As early as March, we realized that we can carry cargo in the passenger crafts, but that requires a lot of allowances, permits, and a lot of check and audits and the acceptance of civil aviation. So in less than 3 weeks' time, the teams worked 7 days, 24 hours, first to convince Turkish civil aviation for flight safety and security perspectives, and also prepare 30 plus of our B777 passenger aircrafts for cargo carrying. And by March 20th, we hold our first passenger freighter, the other words, freighter, we call it, to Kiev with as a passenger freighter, but with full of cargo. This is one of the first in the world that any airline launched a passenger freighter, and afterwards, until mid this year, early this year, we operated more than 4,300 such a flights. That certainly required a lot of innovation, a lot of technical adaptation, and very quick decisions and execution. The second one is related to pharma corridors. Now for COVID-related medicals, protective equipments, and all the pharma products. And now since late last year with vaccines, as you know, we had to run corridors. The corridor means you have to have end-to-end, or in other words, door-to-door compliance. The BioNTech 500 degrees in terms of vaccine protection. So you have to provide this to be no more than Celsius degrees shift through whole supply chain. That requires a lot of investment, that requires a lot of connection, integration, mainly virtual integration, in order to make sure that from, let's say, a factory in Delhi, India, you receive AstraZeneca, Oxford vaccine, and you deliver worldwide, not only to London or Dublin, but worldwide in, for example, to Johannesburg in South Africa. That should be from Delhi to Istanbul, then transferring Istanbul and Istanbul to Johannesburg, fully compliant as a pharma product. There are certainly strong and difficult regulations like IATA CIV and GTB, which we initially started to invest as early as 2016 and increased our presence throughout 2018 and 19, luckily before pandemic. So with the latest investment and adjustments during the pandemic, Turkish Cargo used to be and still is one of the largest compliant pharma corridor operator, air cargo operator on more than 400 routes from A to B. And that is still running as a big vaccine carrier. We are probably within the top 3 global air vaccine carriers due to the COVID-19 recent. These numbers are as of May. So as end of June, it also increased further. But we carried now a bit more than a year, more than 50,000 tons of pharma and medical shipment, and more than 100 million doses. End of May, so as of June should be higher. By starting by as early as November last year, carried more than 100 million doses. I mean, we can say Turkey as a country got now, I think 30 to 40 million doses, and still going very intensely. Every week we are receiving Pfizer, BioNTechs, and every 2-3 weeks we are receiving Sinovac from Beijing, China. We are, again, I said, as a transit carrier. So Turkish exports or Turkish imports are only 20% of Turkish cargo business. 80% of Turkish cargo business is carrying, let's say, Huawei or Samsung products from Hanoi, Vietnam factories to worldwide, not only to Turkey, to worldwide, and carrying Sinovac vaccines from Beijing, not only to Turkey, but worldwide. We carried in November the first Sinovac products to Brazil, much earlier than Turkey, unfortunately. And from India to worldwide, AstraZeneca, Oxford, or BioNTech, Pfizer, again to Israel and to Middle East, together with DHL, rather than only to Turkey. That's how it works from a network perspective. Another innovative solution, or 2 innovative solutions that we had to.
Turhan, I'm very sorry for the interruption, but
I have too long for that. Yeah.
Will it be possible to summarize in 5 minutes at most, if it's possible?
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. It's very nice to hear you, but listen to you. But
certainly. I realized now that it was already passed. Sorry for that.
No problem. Thanks.
When obviously our operational air operations and ground operations people continue to work 7 days, 24 hours during the pandemic. But again, due to the regulations and also health constraints, we had to pull our employees back to the offices. And that was a very intense, difficult problem because we had to work much intenser than before. And most of our team, especially planners, sales guys, development guys, and support office functions were totally from home. So what we did is hopefully started earlier 2020 to RPAs, robotic process automation. We just speed it up. Now there are 5 of them, Alpha, Bravo, Delta, Charlie, and Foxtron, as the software or robots that runs the basic, so that relieves a lot of our engineering and analytic people to focus on deviations and overall management rather than to go into low skill analytics work and tasks. And they are mainly automated. So RPAs were a strong innovation. And the other one is a Kargi, a chatbot, visibility to our customers through a WhatsApp line related to price, quotations, and status of their orders and shipments and location and full track and trace. That were 2 basic that we put into place by as early as June, May and June last year. And this is the result, how it happened. As I said, Turkish cargo started to grow heavily by 2015 and 16. In 2019, it was 8 worldwide, with 3.8% market share. In 2020, the market dropped, shrunk. However, with all these efforts, Turkish cargo placed up to 6th level with 4.7% of market share. Now we have the first 4 months of 2021 with 5% market share. Turkish cargo is now the 5th largest global air cargo carrier. This is by far the biggest market share any Turkish brand gets from a global market in a global competitive market, as far as we know. If there is any other, I'll be glad to learn about it. We have certainly more ambitious targets for 2023 and onwards, the 100th anniversary of our republic, to be within the top 3 and best 3 of worldwide cargo carriers. And that requires a lot of strategies to go forward. But the most important that I can share is probably this slide will help us a lot. With the impact of being in the closest to center of gravity of worldwide air traffic, as well as in passenger, also in cargo, with the new Istanbul airport, Turkey and Istanbul has the chance to be one of the biggest worldwide air hubs. The established capacity of Istanbul airport from air cargo perspective is 6 million tons. The establishment, the investment of Turkish cargo into Smartest, the new facility, is just by itself alone is 4 million tons. And you can see some of the European, Middle Eastern, and Far Eastern other players, countries and cities capacities as of early 2020 to see how the potential of Istanbul and Turkey may stand. And this can totally be run through Smartest, a Turkish cargo, air cargo hub terminal building in Istanbul airport. With the second phase being run, it will be 350,000 total square meter of closed roof with 4 million tons of capacity, with a lot of state-of-the-art technologies in order to make sure that it works effectively and efficiently. The opening will be very soon, later this summer or early fall time, probably with the presence of our President of Republic. even in the phase one, 280,000 square meter, it is by far the largest industrial complex under single roof in Turkey, again, according to statistics. So basically, this is the journey during the pandemic of Turkish cargo, and also strong drive and vision to go further into the better places for Turkish people, for Turkish economy, certainly to increase the competitive advantages of Turkish producers and all the foreign trade owners, to make sure that Turkey has the strongest, one of the strongest economy with such a strong and resilient air supply chain. And Turkish cargo will be proud to be a part of it. So thank you very much. And again, I do apologize to be late with the time.
Thank you for your presentation. We will be happy to take the questions at the end of the panel. Now I would like to leave the scene to Ahmet Khalil for his presentation.
Hello, everybody. Again, I hope you all doing well. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation and thankful to Izmir University of Economic Top Management to give me the chance to be here today. It's an honor to me. And this is my first time here, and I hope it will be not the last time. Now let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, everything is seeing that? Yeah, okay. Today's panel is supply chain resilience. So I would like to use what mentioned on APEX Dictionary 16 edition, which defines supply chain management as design, planning, execution, control, and monitoring supply chain activities with objectives of creating net value, building competitive infrastructure, leveraging worldwide logistics, synchronizing supply with demand, and measuring performance globally. But here is an even simpler way to define supply chain management through this equation, which defines supply chain management equal suppliers plus logistics plus customers. And if we can review the elements of logistics to explain what is logistics, activities, and process, we can find storage, warehousing, material handling, packaging, inventory, information and control, and transportation. And from my scope, and to be able to understand the major role of maritime mode in transport elements, I can use a quote of UN 8th Secretary General Ban Ki-moon during his message on World Maritime Day, when he said that maritime transport is a backbone of global trade and the global economy. It's true because maritime transport underpins global supply chain linkages and economic interdependency with shipping and ports, estimated to handle over 80% of global merchandise trade by volume and more than 70% by value. No one can do it that COVID-19 triggered a global health and economic crisis with wide-ranging implications for maritime transport and trade, as a majority of countries have imposed lockdown measures in light of the pandemic due to closed warehouses. Some retailers and manufacturers have refrained from picking up cargo and containers, which caused congestion in port, raw material shortage, ocean blank sailing and its effect, equipment and labor shortage. These obstacles undermine the smooth movement of trade flow and supply chain operation. It's something like domino effect. And it's clear through the what it mentioned in the global trade update in June, and through this chart we can easily figure out the bad effect of COVID on global trade percentage. And from this map it will show what is the participation share for each continent. And if we can link these circumstances and effect on Egyptian market, especially Egypt is a major player in global. The overall transportation and storage sector is, of course, excluding Suez Canal, contribute about 5% to annual GDP. The situation in Egypt is not so far from the global condition in the light of high demand and shortage of supplier, which cause shortage of equipments, increasing of shipping freight, increasing of cost consequently. And we can summarize the impact in Egyptian transport sector through the Peloponnesian supply and demand shocks, blank sailing effect, and it's also effect on Suez Canal due to the global slowdown. And from Arcus scope, we are not affected so much due to COVID because the market rule has been changed, and especially in Egypt, market rule concentrate in Africa and Europe and Black Sea, and we are not linked to China directly. So we are, and at the same time, the government decisions support exporters, which reflect on our volume in export section. Okay, but for my scope, I will need to pick up one of the most major problem which caused by COVID-19 is the crew change crisis. I know, Yani, maybe you are talking about the maritime trade and the economy, global trade, which affected by COVID. But I will talk through another point of view, which I said in crew change crisis and the effect of it in the global supply chain. What is the root of this problem? The root starts since first quarter of 2020, when governments around the world have been imposing widespread changes in crew change procedures. Bloomberg reported that 120 countries or territories have stopped or limited access for ships to conduct seafarer changes. Long stay at sea mean many have lost visa rights to enter their nearest port, causing regulatory blockage. Restricted flight schedules due to COVID have also exacerbated this issue. Navigating regulation restriction has also problematic. Sources estimate that global about 250,000 sailors on board stranded on board, overcontracted due to factors arising from effort to contain the spread of COVID-19. International Maritime Organization also estimates that an additional 400,000 crew members are also unable to enter their ships. Now, I will ask, and I think all of us want to ask, what is how is the crew change crisis impacting the global supply chain? First of all, I would refer to the report that issued by the International Transport Worker Federation, ITF, which points to poor working conditions, including little medical care and food, to explain a rise in fatigue, depression, and suicide. And a number of online reports suggest that sailors have been suffering from serious mental health issues owing to malnutrition and insomnia. And this point, exactly, I will share a very small story about our experience. Really, we are noticed that the mental health cases for the crewing has been increasing during the last 2 years, starting from 2020, and it's increasing up to today. And according to our participation to BS management webinar about the mental health problem, which caused by COVID, they recommend all shipping agencies to adding new measures to be focused on mental health treatment and mental health care for crew, which we already involved in our operational. This crisis presents significant and multifaceted risk to global supply chains. The determining issue is crew fatigue, which brings significant labor safety and maritime crime risks. Minor issues such as regulatory physical delay are also present, and the scale of this crew change crisis and its intraceability owing to pre-existent conditions of the shipping industry and COVID-19 mean supply chain risk in global shipping will continue to increase. One of primary risks to global supply chain is the possibility of labor action and safety violations. As a result of poor crew well-being, bottom-up labor action might contribute to significant delay in shipping. And as a context, Arcus Egypt has been awarded the Star Award by Maersk Line for its secure, fast, and successful management of the largest-scale Maersk crew change in Egypt. And under challenging pandemic condition of 2020, Arcus Egypt managed one of the biggest transfer operations within the scope of Maersk Line large-scale crew change project in only 15 days by working in coordination with all authority in Egypt to evacuate 510 seafarers in different Egyptian ports. The handling process, including safety policies in coordination with all related vendors, if these vendors is transportation modes or hotels, or even coordination with the police and the official authority, medical care, mental health care, and large transportation scale. According to our statistics report, we performed the crew change process for 3,300 seafarers through 2020 and 1,400 seafarers through the first half of 2021. Although the most countries open their borders and we can perform crew change for seafarers better than the first period, but we still facing some crisis, and this crisis still has not been solved 100% due to a period of new strain of COVID and its effect on the travel restriction for some countries, the very quick changeable for the government restriction and government regulation, which affect on the rules of logistics operation for the seafarer. And besides that, and we expect that we. Excuse me. It's not related to me, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. And we can expect that we will face another challenge for to use vaccine, especially in the third countries, because some countries still hasn't enough quota for their citizens to use it for seafarers, which will be facing this challenge later. And during our struggle to back to normal during the first smack of COVID-19, on 23 of March, we woke up on another smack when the giant ship container Ever Given has lodged sideways at Suez Canal's channel, especially in 151 kilometer mark. The vessel, which is 400 meters long, 59 meters wide, and carry about 220,000 tons, had set sail from China and was on its way to Rotterdam. The Suez Canal, pushing with all their fleet of tugs at estimate 16 tugs, plus 2 foreign flag tugs, are participating in rescue mission, which takes 6 days. And for technical wise, rescue mission pushing and pushing is process will not be able to doing all the days. They determine what is the high water period to make the push. It was very complicated process, but after 6 days is success. And plus the dredging process, which removed more than 27,000 cubic meters of sand, reaching depth level of 18 meters. And as an update of this case, the last press conference held by Suez Canal Authority revealed the reason for this grounding of this ship, saying that the whole accident is shipmaster fault, that the Ever Given captain was going to such high speed that resulted in grounding of the ship. Meanwhile, head of Suez Canal navigation ruled out the bad weather had role in this accident, clarifying that 12 vessels had already passed through the canal in the same convoy before the accident, and ship captain didn't ask not to enter the South Canal. And the legal team affirmed that nothing in the black box worked against Suez Canal pilot, saying their opinion is not obligatory. And this is the main point for this situation. The pilot opinion is not obligatory, and the captain is free to not follow their opinion. And during the black box, the captain didn't give any notice or any concern about the bad weather, or even if he not need to enter Suez Canal due to bad weather. Meanwhile, the second lawsuit filed by ship owner Japanese company was grievance against the decision of putting the ship until under arrest until paying the required compensation. the court rejects these grievances. So now about the negotiation between Suez Canal Authority and the ship owner passed many stages. First stage, the Suez Canal asked for 900 million as a compensation, then has been reduced up to 600 million. The ship owner offered 150 million, and at that context and during the meeting with Panama ambassador and the director general of the Panama Maritime Authority, the Suez Canal make another offer to reduce the compensation up to $550 million, provided that 200 million paid in advance, then the remaining will be paid as a letter of guarantee or paid through 1 year. But according to the news which we received for 2 days ago, especially on 26th of June, there are news that Suez Canal reached a compensation agreement with the ship owner, which will be announced next Thursday, and the vessel can sail very soon, and we hope so. Well, how is this case affecting global economy? I will refer to the Lloyd estimation that more than 9 billion worth of goods pass through Suez Canal channel each day, translating to around 400 million per hour. The knock-on effect, including congestion at port as well as vessel not being in the right place for their next scheduled journey. In other words, smaller port cannot just absorb the scheduling conflicts created by the traffic jam at the Suez Canal. Most importantly, it further exacerbates supply chain already reeling from container shortage amid the COVID buying boom. On the other hand, the accident caused heavy congestion on anchorage area on both sides, which reached on 29 of March to 429 ships on both sides. It's the fact that Suez Canal need about 12 days to back to normal and to evacuate all waiting vessels. On the other hand, and during the blockage, major containers are diverting ship round Cape of Good Hope to avoid the blockage. Lloyd List, Maersk, and CMCGM have already rerouted some of their vessels. And according to my scope, and as I am responsible for husbandry services and port call for Maersk and Egyptian port, I participate in some plans for Maersk, and they decide to move 3 vessels through the first 3 days to the Cape of Good Hope to avoid the blockage.
Dear Ahmed Khalil, I'm very sorry for the interruption, but we are running out of time. Will it be possible?
I just have one slide.
Yeah. Okay. After 3 minutes, I would allow. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, okay. And despite the Suez Canal strategic position, competition has been increasing in the light of low price of oil, which more and more some ships are deciding not to take Suez Canal route. And at that context, Suez Canal make rebate systems and give incentive for the ship owner to use Suez Canal instead of alternative. And in the light of ever given case, the Egyptian government moved so quickly to improve Suez Canal transit performance. And on 11th of May, the Suez Canal plans to expand and deepen the southern stretch of the waterway where the container ship became jammed. Chairman presents the plan at the event attended by Mr. President Sisi, who indicates that the project should be completed in 24 months at most. This is a plan. Okay, and I will explain in the map to be clear for all. The map contains 3 points. First one is within the southernmost 3 kilometers stretch of waterway between city of Suez and Bitter Lake area by 40 meters. This is Bitter Lake area, and this is Suez city, and the within will be in this area for 40 meters in toward the Sinai Peninsula. This area exactly will be within 40 meters, and it's the same second point. It's planned to deepen that section to 72 feet from the currently 66 feet. This is to not affected by the weather in the future. The third point of the plan, this is the second canal lane that opened in 2015 north of Great Bitter Lake to allow two-direction traffic would be extended to 10 kilometers on the southern side of the lake to reach total length kilometer. And what I mean, it will there will be two-direction lane in this area exactly 10 kilometers to allow more ship to pass. I expect more 6 vessel, 3 vessel for each direct will be increased. Now I finish my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
So, merhaba to you all, dear scholars and dear panelists and dear students. I'm very happy to be here today. And of course, partly because Izmir is taking up a big space in my heart. I really miss being there. So this is at least a virtual attempt to come to you. So I will talk about some of my perspectives of managing supply networks in times of uncertainty. And probably you, as well as me, are getting a little bit tired of reading headlines like this. We have seen those a lot during the last years now here. However, and here I address the students probably more than us others, you will continue to read things like that because we have and still are and will continue to face challenges that will have a quite dramatic implications and drivers for disruption and transformation of supply chains and the transport industry. So this is what I will talk about here, and I will widen the scope slightly and also talk about things outside the pandemic situation. So shortly to start with about the Volvo Group where I'm working. We are getting almost 100 years old by now. We are about 100,000 employees worldwide, 190 markets, 10 business areas and 12 brands. Probably you have seen our products out there somewhere, the trucks, the buses, and also the yellow machines that we use for construction. We're also supplying marine engines for leisure as well as commercial traffic. And with respect to the trucks, you have probably seen our Volvo trucks in Turkey and also the Renault trucks, which are part of the wider Volvo Group. So this is what you could say a product-centric perspective, what we are doing. If we instead start to look on what we are aiming at in the future, then of course, as many companies in the transport and logistics industry, we are also changing because we need to adapt to new circumstances, and I will come back to that. We have ambition targets, and maybe you have seen already that we have been communicating our science-based targets for more sustainable products and operations, moving towards fossil-free solutions. We are investing heavily in automation, electromobility, and connectivity, providing new possibilities for more safe and sustainable transport. And we are also looking into how to servitize our offerings, providing new kinds of offerings and business models adapted to our future customers and the transport systems of the future. But then back to the thing that is in focus today, uncertainties and disruptions of transport and logistics systems. We have been hearing about it already today, this morning here. We have talked about the COVID-19 pandemic, still not over, unfortunately. We just heard about the Ever Given, the problems that we have seen due to the blockage of the Suez Canal. And more recently, we have also learned about the shortage of semiconductors. And all of those disruptions and the challenges that we are facing here has a profound implication and effect on the logistic and transport systems and the companies within that, and Volvo definitely being part of that. We have seen change with respect to demands from consumers, a boom in e-commerce, and that is, of course, has an effect on what kind of type of trucks that our customers have been using. moving into last mile deliveries, moving into distribution, urban city traffic, and so forth. We have also seen change of logistics and transport patterns due to the lockdowns of some production facilities. We have been seeing alternative suppliers, etc., etc. We have had and still have a shortage of containers, leading to delays and increased costs. And that not only affects the maritime traffic, but also the truck transports that are doing the last mile and the on land moving of those containers. We have also seen a lot of disruption of supply chains and related production, and then of course coming back to the silicon chips and the effect that that has had on the components that go into many products today, from refrigerators to truck, etc. So all in all, we see that many companies today are revisiting the previous outsourcing strategies. We will probably see more of nearshoring or reshoring and introducing multiple sub-suppliers in order to be on the safe side. All of that, of course, having a profound effect on the transport and logistics systems. But it's not only about those issues that we have seen. It's also about the more wider changes that we have seen growing for the last 5, 10, 15 years. We're talking about the society in transformation. We are talking about growing population, urbanization, new and stronger societal demands. So we see an increased demand of transport, definitely in the urban perspective. We see a demand for increased productivity of transport. And also connected to that, we see a drive towards more sustainable transport with a lower environmental footprint. And as a possibility, providing a possibility for that, we have a lot of technological developments. We have electromobility, battery propelled vehicles. We have fuel cell technology moving in very quickly. We have digitization, connectivity, providing the possibility to get and share data. And we have automation. And all of those technological enablers and drivers has an effect on not only the vehicles, but the infrastructure. And as a result of that, we will also see a change of transport systems. For example, if we are using battery electrical vehicles, we need to adapt the transport routes so that we can fit in charging when we need that. Or if we have fuel cell technology, we need to make sure that we can fill up with H2. Combined with the changes of the society, changes of the actors in the transport industry, and also the technology coming up now, we see alternative business models introduced, which will then, of course, also has an influence on the transport systems and all the actors within that. So, with this perfect storm of changes and drivers that we are seeing right now, how could we ever get a grasp on what's going on and how to manage that? Often we are using a supplier-buyer perspective. We are looking on the often very contractual-based agreements between the supplier and buyer. That, of course, enables us to coordinate the supplies and resources of those two actors. I would argue, however, that it's slightly difficult to see the effect coming from external events and factors. And that goes also if we apply a more vertical supply chain perspective, where we have a longer view horizon, you could say. This, of course, enables us to understand if there's something happening in upstreams, through the sub-suppliers, for example, we can try to understand what will happen further downstream. But still, it doesn't really enable us to get this wider perspective. And specifically now that we have seen the pandemic rolling over us and all the variety of changes and disturbances and disruptions that has led to, it has become very clear that we need to figure out how to look upon supply chains and in a different way. And one way, of course, is to have a network perspective. This is not new, but to my experience, not much used in the industry. And then I can only look at the company where I'm working. But during the last years, I've seen the possibilities opening when you have a different perspective on the transport system and the logistics and the supplies. So by having an understanding about the variety of actors in a network and also the type of connections that you have between those actors, it becomes more possible to actually look on and understand the implications and effects of events happening throughout the network. So let's take two examples here. We have, for example, case one here, where customers during the pandemic favor e-commerce because they are staying at home. That, of course, has an implication on the shippers, which is in turn has an effect on the transport buyers, which has an effect on the transport providers, and then also on the OEM like Volvo. But looking at the picture here, it also becomes visible that if the customers, the transport buyers, the hauliers are using a different kind of trucks with a different kind of transport cycles, that also has an effect on the workshops where we are doing maintenance. So something that happens in the far right of this network here, we can understand more easily what kind of effects that has on other parts of the network. The case two here regards the shortage of semiconductors. And those sub-suppliers then they deliver to the suppliers which are building electrical equipment that are finally installed in refrigerators, aircrafts, truck, and so on. So by looking at the connections here and the interdependencies among the actors, we can also understand what kind of effects that finally has on the possibility for hauliers, for example, to have their vehicles repaired, their possibility for buying new vehicles, etc. So I would argue that the network view and network perspective more easily helps you to understand the complexity and what happens throughout the network. So applying such a perspective, this helps us to manage the challenges that we see. And we will definitely for sure see more of them coming up, both the white swans and the black swans that we are not knowing about. So the supply networks involves interdependencies. And as a result, as we have seen through the two examples, things happening in one corner of the network definitely has an effect on other parts of the network. And to manage all this, we need to understand the dynamics of the wider business network. And additionally, it is important to understand that the solutions that we have, the transport solutions, often involves a joint effort involving several stakeholders. That, of course, in order to manage and deliver the optimal value for all the involved parties. So, concluding my presentation here, I just want to congratulate the students now about to enter the working in the transport industry and logistics industry. You have never seen a more dynamic and interesting time. The changes you will see in the transport and the logistics industry are profound, and you will have so many challenging and interesting things ahead of you. So I believe that the continuous transformation will become the new normal, the business as usual. Things will never be stable for a longer time. There will be dynamics, changing, transformation, challenges all over. And the transformation will affect entire supply networks and all the firms in that. So in order to enable and develop the efficient and effective and solutions that we need for sustainable transport in the future, of course, all those firms must develop the solutions together with a collaboration based on trust and a visibility based on transparency. So Thank you for listening. Looking forward to your comments and questions now.